Well, China vowing to retaliate here after President Biden announced new tariffs on certain Chinese goods yesterday. These include a 100% tariff on Chinese electric vehicle imports, a 50% tariff on Chinese solar cells, and a 25% tariff on certain Chinese steel and aluminum imports. Yahoo Finance's Brian Sozzi spoke exclusively to President Biden yesterday and asked about any actions China might take. Take a listen, and then we'll talk to the man that you see on screen right now.
The fact is, China already is what you might say way over their skis on this. What they'll do, I don't think it'll lead to any international conflict or anything like that. But I think they'll probably try to figure out how they can raise tariffs, maybe on products that are unrelated.
Okay, let's bring in Brian Sozzi now. I mean, China has already kind of looked at this scenario and announced its own potential action that they would take if the administration does not step back off of what it had already announced here.
Yeah, I would say it's unclear precisely how China reacts. We've seen they've put out some comments, of course, some chatter on various social media channels, but it's unclear if they respond tit for tat. Remember that saying during the Trump trade war? Is it a tit for tat? So the U.S. comes out here, $18 billion in tariffs. Does China respond to that exact number, or do they go even further? I would even add, too, this might just be the opening bid or the opening start here for President Biden. Do they take this even further in an election year when he and his administration want to highlight what they're doing in terms of manufacturing and bringing back jobs to the country, whether it's in semiconductors or other important industries? So this may just be a starting point. And then if President Biden should win re-election, does this go even further? And then conversely, I mean, you heard some comments from former President Trump, who's been out there suggesting 10% across the board tariffs. We talked to a lot of economists. They're saying that would be really detrimental to the U.S. economy. He ramped up that rhetoric recently, saying, I think it was last weekend or earlier this week, 200% tariffs on China EVs, which basically is a ban. I mean, it's not happening. But nonetheless, I asked President Biden a little bit more about China. He noted that China may just be really artificially propping up its economy. Take a listen.
China is fundamentally underrating their entire industries. They're just they flood a market. They pay whatever it takes to flood it. They make sure to put everybody else out of business and they take over. Or, for example, even if you want it for the longest time, if you want to do business in China, guess what? You have to have a 51% Chinese owner. You have to make sure that you're, in fact, going to make sure that they have access to the intellectual property. It goes on and on. It's about being fair.
We've been covering the economy for a long time. We've been doing this for a while. We hear a lot of leaders, CEOs, politicians talk about how China's dumping steel in the market or aluminum, but we also had the opportunity to talk to a lot of actual CEOs in the trenches, the CEO of Century Aluminum, for example, talking about how China has been dumping cheap imports or cheap products into this country, driving down prices. These are real things that are happening. And one stat that really blew my mind, there's only 4 smelters in the United States, or smelters make essentially aluminum. Now, Century Aluminum is building the 5th one, amid help from President Biden, the administration, various grants or loans. But that production has pretty much went overseas. To have 4 smelters in this country making aluminum, which impacts tin foil, it's just like, oh, I didn't realize that.
Yes, I'm curious with your conversations, because you talked to a number of the other officials within the Biden administration, a number of CEOs when you were down in D.C. yesterday. Great interviews,
Thank you,
by the way. But what did you learn just about their sense of what they're seeing from the consumer, the sense of how strong and resilient the economy has been, and how they are navigating this uncertain time here with their business?
I do want to couch this in saying I don't think anyone that we talked to inside the White House was going to say the economy sucks. It just wasn't happening. These were folks invited to the White House. They participated in the Rose Garden ceremony. It was a big moment for them. We got to talk to them off camera. But I didn't get the sense, just watching their eyes in these interviews, hearing how they're talk, that this is an economy falling off a cliff today, or likely to fall off a cliff a couple months or even a year from now. Was it gangbusters economy? Didn't get that sense either, but this economy, by all indications, continues to be growing. There's demand for steel, there's demand for aluminum. The world is not ending.